The first sense organ which senses the stimuli is the receptors. Receptors are widely spread in our body. So these receptors may be superficial, may be situated deeply and in the viscera. So whatever the receptors, the general principle is that the dendrites, that is the accepting, that this is the accepting wing, or you can say limb, or you can say fiber of the spinal nerve. So this is one example, the receptor is here, sense organ is here, action potential is developed, and in the form of senses, impulses, the sense impulse goes to the dorsal root of ganglion, and this medial process, this is the peripheral process, and this is your medial process. This medial process, they either enter into the dorsal horn, relay here, or directly into the interneuron, or directly to the anterior motor neurons. So there may be two conditions that this, after entering, may enter into the anterior horn cells, or they may cross, or they may be uncrossed and they ascend upward. So if they do not ascend upward to the cerebral cortex, they form a reflex. This is called reflex arc. So which consists of 5 things, and you will read later on. So the destination might be spinal cord, or it may be the sensory cortex. Now, if we cut the spinal cord, or this picture shows the transverse section of the spinal cord. Now, they say one half, this is the another half of the spinal cord. This half depicts the ascending tracts, and this half, other half, depict the descending tracts. But remember that this is a symmetrical representation on either side. So here you will find the different tracts. Before starting that, you must know this is the grey horn matter, and this is the white funicular, or you can say white matter. White matter, why it is white? Because of the myelination of the neurons. And myelin sheath give the appearance of the whiteness. And this is rich in neurons, cell bodies or nuclei. So these are the grey in color. Now this combination means the grey inside and the white outside is just reverse in the brain tissue. In that case, white is inside and the grey is outside. Anyhow, but we must know that it is by this diagram, the white matter can be divided into 3 funiculars. This is the dorsal column funicular, or you can say dorsal column white matter. This is lateral, and this is the anterior white column. Now, these columns, for our convenience, is carry the particular type of the ascending tracts. Here you will find dorsal column tracts, and the name of these is fasciculus gracilis and the fasciculus cuneatus. This is the funiculus gracilis and funiculus cuneatus. Now, in between 2 is the coma tract of Schultz. Now, here you will find there is 2 main tracts, fasciculus gracilis and the fasciculus cuneatus. This is the first order neurons. Mind it, this is the important point. This is the first order neuron. Now, in the lateral column, mainly you will find dorsal spinocerebellar tract, ventral spinocerebellar tract. So, these are cerebellar or spino, because it starts from the spinal cord, and ends in the cerebellum. That's why it is known as dorsal spinocerebellar tract. And anterior to this is the ventral spinocerebellar tract. Medial to that you will find lateral spinothalamic tract. It is written here wrong. It is lateral spinothalamic tract. And the counterpart of that is the anterior spinothalamic tract in the anterior column. Now in between you will find spinoalveoli and spinotectal. So main is the spinothalamic, fasciculus gracilis, fasciculus cuneatus, then spinocerebellar, after that alveoli and tectal. Now before starting these tracts, we must know the Rex laminae. Rex is the neurophysician, and he divided the dorsal horn, or you can say grey matter of the spinal cord, into 10 laminae. That is named after them. After him is the Rex laminae. And it is important to know these laminae because it will depict which type of the neuron which will relay where. So Rex looked at the structure of the grey matter of the spinal cord and divided it into the columns of the cells that were similar to each other, but they are in a different segments. So their functions are different. His observation was based on the shape and the size of the neurons. That is a very important classification, shape and the size of the neurons. And he divided the grey matter into 10 layers. And these 10 layers are depicted in the Roman letters 1 to 10. 6 out of these 10 are embedded for the dorsal horn, numbered 1 to 6. Lamina 10 is around the central canal, and they are rich in neuroglial cells. These are the supporting cells. They provide nutrition to the neurons, nuclei. In the ventral horn, laminae 8 and 9 contain longitudinal columns of the motor neuron. This is the motor neurons. So we can say there are 10 layers. 10th number 1 to 6 is for dorsal or sensory nuclei. Then 7 is lateral nuclei, autonomic nerves, and the 8th and 9th is for motor nuclei. 10th is neuroglial cells. So you can say dorsal horn cells in purple, that is for sensory sensations. Intermediolateral nuclei for autonomic nervous system. Motor nuclei is the ventral nuclei. So why it is important that we say dorsal horn, relay in the dorsal horn means it is sensory. Intermediate grey means autonomic nervous system. Ventral horn means it is anterior motor neurons. So there are nuclei which is in the layered which are present is a post-marginal nucleus. Second layer, substantia gelatinosa. Then fourth, nucleus proprius, nucleus dorsalis. Then intermediolateral cell group, medial group or lateral group of the anterior motor neuron. So these are the layers. Again, do not confuse. At particular type of the neurons, they originated from different type of the cells organs or receptors, and they relay or synapse in the dorsal horn. Suppose A delta nociceptors, from here it originates fibers which is A delta type and relay into the layer 1 or synapse in layer 1. Peptidergic fibers either C unmyelinated or myelinated, thin myelinated, they relay into the first and the second one. So the concern mainly with the pain. C non-peptidergic fibers in the second one. So C fibers again non-peptidergic or it may be peptidergic. A data hair follicles afferent, second or third. Second or third. A data hair cells here, hair follicles which responsible for touch sensations. A beta hair follicles and tactile afferent is 2I and 5th. So they are again subdivision of the layer 2, but for our convenience this is for pain and this is for touch. Fine touch and pressure sensations. This one. So this classification is very useful for to know the different laminae, to know the different neurons relay or synapses in the different lamina, and their functions are different. So lamina 1 is known as marginal layer or the jaw. Lamina 2, gelatinous appearance, that's why it is substantia gelatinosa. Fourth and fifth, nucleus proprius, and sixth is nucleus dorsalis. And relay in the cerebellum, then it is called spinocerebellar tract. Do not forget the terminology, spinocerebellar tract. If they relay in the cerebral cortex, spino or relay here in the thalamus, it is spinothalamic, later spinothalamic or anti-spinothalamic. So what we will find, the axons may ascend on the later spinothalamic tract, they may form later spinothalamic tract or they may form anti-spinothalamic tract depending upon the location. Again, sensory functions depend upon the tract placement also. Dorsal column, they form medial LEMINSCUS and they convey the sensations or the proprioceptions, vibrations, tactile discrimination. The first order neuron ascend up to the medulla. Then they relay here and cross. Spinothalamic tract, it conveys pain and temperature, crude touch also, and immediately they cross because second order neuron, they are formed by the second order neuron. They ascend in the spinal cord as a second order neuron. Spinocerebellar, same way, they convey proprioceptions. Dorsal tract ascend to ipsilateral cerebellum, while the ventral is contralateral. Contralateral means they cross, the fibers cross and they relay into the opposite side. Spinoreticular convey deep and pain. So here you will find sensory tract or ascending tract. They conduct the impulses from peripheral part of the body to the center part of the brain. The important ascending tracts are lateral and anterior-spinothalamic tract. This is anterior-spinothalamic tract and this is the lateral spinothalamic tract. They will carry pain and temperature sensation. This will carry pain and temperature sensation. So first sensation which is present here is the pain, then temperature. This anterior spinothalamic tract will carry crude touch. Fine touch and conscious proprioceptive sensations are carried by fasciculus, gracilis and cuneatus. old terminology is tract of Burdeck for the fasciculus cuneatus and the tract of Gall for the fasciculus gracilis. So this is meant for fine touch and conscious proprioceptive sensation, means the position of the joint sense at the level of conscious level. So the next is spinocerebellar, anterior and posterior spinocerebellar tract. Now the function is unconscious. You are not aware about the proprioception and the muscle coordination. These are the function of spinocerebellar tract. Now the anterolateral spinothalamic tract lie in the continuity with each other. So once they ascend, they will ascend together. So first sensation, we can consider it as a single tract and we can say anterolateral spinothalamic tract. But for convenience, lateral is for pain and temperature, anterior for touch, crude touch and pressure. Now, what is the important thing which is depicted in this diagram? It is written here SLTC, here CTLC, LS and CTLS. Now, what is the importance of this? The spatial orientation, or you can say that high degree of spatial orientation is present from the beginning. Means this part, medialmost part will carry the fibers from the sacral region, lumbar, thoracic and cervical. It means the lowermost medial, and as you go up, then the fibers will be placed laterally. So no disturbances for the first one. Similarly, in the lateral corticospinal tract, you will find the medialmost is the cervical, thoracic, lumbar and sacral. Similarly here is the spinothalamic tract. So this is the very good example of spatial orientation, and it maintains the high degree of orientation. This group, dorsal column, medial lemniscus system, and another is the lateral one. This is anterior. So anterolateral tract, and this is dorsal column tract. This is anterolateral. So what are the similarity in these two? One, all convey sensory information, and also from the cranials they supply from the neck and head regions. Both have their second synapse with ventroposterior nucleus in the thalamus. Second synapse. First synapse may be in the dorsal horn or in the medulla, but second synapse always in the thalamus. Both have their third synapse in the somatosensory cortex, in the cerebral cortex. These are the similarities. And both systems, they convey their sensations contralaterally after their first synapse. So this is similarities between the two systems, anterolateral system and dorsal column medial lemniscus system. So why they are important to know? That you can consider what is a new spinothalamic tract and what is which one is the paleospinothalamic tract. Now, what are the dissimilarities between the new spinothalamic or dorsal column or medial lemniscus system and anterolateral or paleospinothalamic tract? The dissimilarities are: it is composed of large myelinated fibers. It is composed of small smaller myelinated fibers. So when it is a larger myelinated fibers, means velocity is more, 30 to 110 meters per second. Here it is only 40, 2 to 40 meters per second. In the dorsal column, high degree of spatial means place to place, space, concerned with the space, spatial orientation. As I told you, that sacral one, then lumbar, then thoracic, then cervical. So there is a high degree of spatial orientation with respect of their origin, and the less spatial orientation in anterolateral system. Transmission is rapid because they are large, myelinated. Less rapid because myelination is thin. Discrete type or the touch sensations require gradation. So gradation, highly graded sensations, perception is there. And that it will transmit broad spectrum of sensory modalities and like pain temperature, crude touch, pressure. So they can transmit wide spectrum of the sensations, and they only the you can say that broad spectrum of sensations are of can be transmitted by this system, and spatial graded sensations are transmitted by dorsal column. So the adaptation is rapid here. Fine touch you will find, pressure again you will find is adaptation is rapid. Adaptation is very good example of the very good quality of the very good property of the receptors. So here you will find is a very slow adaptation. Sometimes it is not adapted at all. So these are the dissimilarities between the dorsal column or medial lemniscus or gracilis, cuneatus, and if we talk about two spinothalamic, lateral and anterior spinothalamic, then you will find again the dissimilarities and similarities. We will talk we will discuss about the pain and temperature and crude. Now, as soon as center process of the dorsal root ganglion, as soon as this center process of dorsal root ganglion, they enter into the dorsal horn, then what happens? They divide into two branches. One is the medial branch and another is lateral branch. So there are two branches. One is medial, another is lateral. Medial branch means towards the center canal or center sulcus. It consists of myelinated fibers. It is meant for proprioceptors, fine touch, pressure, and vibration. So they are thicker, myelinated. More myelinated. Later division, thin myelinated or unmyelinated fibers. They come under the group 3rd and 4th classification of neurons, fibers, and they are for slow pain and visceral sensations or less discriminative like pain and temperature. If there is a medial later division, this later division travels through the substantia gelatinosa of Rolando. So the full name of substantia gelatinosa, Rex laminae 2, is the substantia gelatinosa of Rolando. Again, this is the name of the scientist, which play important role in the gate control theory of pain. So if we, in a nutshell, this is the dorsal column medial lemniscus system. Anterolateral, we say spinal lemniscus. It will, for the finer gradations, it require thicker or more myelinated. High degree of spatial orientation is there. Adaptation is faster. Sensation mainly relay in somatosensory cortex. Here you will find transmission velocity is less myelinated, less degree of spatial orientation, slow adaptation, gradation is less. Here the gradation is very much, 100 times, 10 times, it is 10 to 20. And they do not relay, they may relay in the somatosensory area, number one, but mainly they may relay into the intralaminar nuclei of thalamus, or they may relay into the somatosensory cortex, number one. So thanking you and subscribe for the next lecture. Thanking you.